What's up, guys? This video is going to be about Scorpio Ascendant, and this is a placement that I have for my first videos. I'm looking to try to talk about things that I know more clearly, that I have some personal insights on, as opposed to speculating about other things. This is going to change, obviously, depending on your degree. Most for Placidus house system, Koch or Koch house system, and the other ones that take the ascendant as the start of the chart, because this will change which house you are. So, for example, my Scorpio is in a very late degree, which means that most of my first house is actually in Sagittarius. And that changes your 7th house. It changes all the houses in your chart. So that's one important thing to know. Because having a 7th house Taurus and a 7th house Gemini is a pretty big difference. So if you use those charts, then you may be able to relate to having a late degree Scorpio and having mostly a Sagittarius first house. Also, another thing is that my Pluto is conjunct my ascendant, so some of the things that I say may be a little bit more dramatic or intense than what you experience if you don't have that conjunction. So, first I'll talk about a few things about Scorpio. So it's ruled by Mars, classically, but it also is co-ruled by Pluto. It's the natural 8th house of the zodiac, fixed water, which you can think about ice, for example, being one form of fixed water. Yeah, so let's jump right into it. So I made a list of things. It'll be a little bit different than the Gemini video I made last, because I'm mostly going to read off of these things and then comment on them, and then I'll save some personal stories and examples till the end. I was a little bit surprised how quick all this came to me. I wasn't going to be sure if I was going to compile enough points to talk about, but I got a couple pages here. So first of all, the facial features of a Scorpio. Now, there's a book about this that was recommended by Santos Bonacci. If anybody wants to know what it is, I can leave that in the comments. Okay, so the facial features of Scorpio are curved eyebrows and sometimes a longer or hooked nose. Now, the important thing to know about this when you're looking at facial genetics and astrology is just that you have to take the genetics into account. So as you can see, I'm mostly a Northern European redhead. Now, some people get a little queasy about talking about this stuff with political correctness and everything, but it's just base reality. And I don't even mean to get into DNA and all that stuff. I just mean, what do your parents look like? What do your grandparents look like? And that's how you're going to look. So, for example, a Middle Eastern Semitic person or a man from Britain may have a hooked nose, or a Roman or an Italian, etc. may have Roman and Italian, same thing, but you get it. May have a hooked nose as a result of their parents' noses, not as a result of being a Scorpio. So that's important to take into account. If you didn't know, Northern Europeans usually have pretty flat eyebrows, especially if they're of a Scandinavian variety. So it's not as definite in my case, but you can see they curve down a bit. My nose doesn't quite hook. But it is a little bit long. So, there's just important things to look for if you want to find a Scorpio. Also, they'll have darker features. For example, my dad has like extremely light blue eyes, whereas mine are more green. And I've seen some videos on iridology, or the study of eyes, saying that green eyes are toxic, meaning that you've been toxified or poisoned. I haven't looked into that, but it could be the case. We've been hit hard in the modern world. Okay, in terms of fashion, they prefer darker colors, such as black, gray, dark brown. Personally, I like purple. That's definitely associated with the 8th house as well. Also, they're known to change their appearance quite often. So, for example, in the past 2 years for me, I've gone from having very long hair down to my shoulders to then shaving to completely bald before I made a trip to Europe. I did that for a few different reasons, not because I'm a white supremacist, but because, as you can see, I'm going balding a little bit, and I wanted to eliminate that fear and go for a full Scorpio transformation. to see how I looked just straight up bald with nothing to conceal me. So they'll change their appearance quite often. This can just be wearing glasses or not wearing glasses, and you'll see that they often look a little bit different in every picture that's taken of them. Okay. They can be naturally intense or intimidating, and there's plenty of Scorpio videos, so you've heard some of these points before, but they can be naturally intimidating, and people have a hot or cold reaction to you pretty quickly. Some people take an antagonistic attitude and approach and look to you right away, and other people want to find out more and are intrigued or find your presence calming. So it just depends. So just so you know, it's like hot and cold, black and white with that. But the people that have, this is just Scorpio Ascendant too. So Ascendant, I should say, has to do with your appearance, your body, your personal issues and events in your life. So the things you go through, it's the first house, so it's the common events and like nature of the events and what you take from events in your life. As well as other things like your actual body. Scorpios, I'm kind of hunched as I'm sitting, so this is pretty obvious, but they hold their, as I said with Geminis, who hold their stress in the, or their nervous energy is exhibited in the hands and in jittery motions, arms, feet, etc. Scorpio holds stress in the shoulders and in the upper back. And often as they get old, they have an extremely hunched and bird-like posture, because that's the natural format. You have to fight against it. I myself am in a constant posture battle. And you know, calling it a battle is probably not the most healthy, because you don't want to antagonize yourself. But I constantly have to consciously pull back my shoulders and straighten my head and my neck. And I'm constantly stretching my neck out, rolling it around, and all this kind of stuff because of the tension that builds up in your back. So my let me show you real quick. So as you can see, there's a palm tree right there. I'll hang with using 2 of those branches, 1 arm in each, kind of in like a Y position with my arms. From that to stretch out my back, I've got a stretch I can show you guys if you want to see it that I do on the ground. And doing pull-ups especially can help a lot with that. You have to strengthen your back. Girls who can't do pull-ups, there's a lot of exercises. Just look up posterior exercises for your upper back, and I know some girls can do pull-ups, I'm just generalizing. But okay, so you're gonna want to strengthen your back and your shoulders and consciously try to stand up straighter. My grandma, for example, was a Scorpio sun, and she had this posture problem into late age, and I live with my cousin who's a Scorpio Ascendant as well, and we both have similar posture. We roll our shoulders forward naturally, so we have to catch ourselves. Okay. Scorpio rules the sacral region. That's what the chakra's called, but the generative system, so down under. And you'll notice that as a Scorpio Ascendant, or with other Scorpio energies and placements, sometimes buzzing or vibrational energy in that region, depending on transits or depending where you are, who you're around, etc. So that's just something to know. There's issues with power struggle from a young age, and they can surface constantly throughout life. So this can be anything as far as employment, working for other people can be a struggle, taking critique and advice and teaching from other people, and it can go so far as some Scorpio Ascendants are involved in sexual abuse and in awful childhoods and just in tough lives that force constant change, adaptation, and learning throughout their lives. But it can go from not that extreme to very extreme, but it will always be present, the power component, which comes from the Plutonic co-rulership. They conceal their feelings and emotions with a flat affect as their common facial appearance, as you can see I'm doing now, or even with a resting mean mug or bitch face, as it's commonly called. So they can kind of look a little bit more sour or gray in their appearance. They can devote themselves to deep research with incredible focus and determination. They're not afraid to go to the bottom of any issue and can even relish in conflict and brood on dark imaginings when they're on their own. So that's kind of a combination of 2 points there. The deep research ones is one that you don't always hear, but that kind of goes with the 8th house, trying to get to the bottom of things. So they'll research one topic continually until they find out what they wanted to know. And then the brooding, that can be a problem that you need to work on, but they'll replay situations and events, and especially power control problems or conversations where they felt slighted, or that the other person was trying to demean them. Another thing about Scorpios is a lot of your enemies will be hidden, or will try to be incognito. They think they're hidden at least, but they'll do things behind your back because they don't want to face you in your actual face to face. They want to do it behind your back. So one problem though is what I said, the brooding and dark imaginings, because Scorpios also have a great memory, and it's fixed water, so they'll think about the same situation and the same emotion, how they feel about that situation, for extended periods of time. And this can get to be to the detriment of the Scorpio itself, because that's when you'll start to slump and the stress will build up in your shoulders and all those different situations, because you're starting to harbor all that negative energy and to stir up a whirlwind inside of you, or to even freeze over. You can just sit there and stare at a wall. Either way. Their lives transform many times. So the appearance, I don't think I actually explained why I shaved my head. Well, besides that, even see I have like a full beard right now. If I was going to a certain party, for me it's just for effect, but I have Gemini placements as well. So it may not be conscious with all Scorpios. I bet it is, but for me it's fully conscious. As I like contrast. So if someone sees me with a full beard, or certain important people see me with a full beard and then they see me without it, that's a huge contrast. It's almost like they're meeting a different person. And so I like to keep people on their toes and not able to label or pin me down for one specific look or action, etc. So I just decided that, so their life, like their appearance, their life also transforms many times. So this can be friendships, interests, what they're interested in, etc. That's like the whole theme of the 8th house and of Scorpio and of Pluto and Mars as well. I should also say this is the nighttime placement of Mars. And also the feminine placement. Scorpio is a feminine water sign. All the water signs are feminine. No, Cancer's masculine. No, Cancer's feminine. Yeah, they're all feminine. So, I could go into that one more deeply, but we'll get into that with some personal stories. They can be prone to addiction and to quick fix spiritual experiences, i.e. psychedelics, sexual experiences, etc. Yeah, I'm prone to both of those things. They harbor responsibilities and others' emotions and problems, even to their own detriment and distaste. So what I said with distaste there, so they think about how other people feel, and especially their deep friends and connections, if they're fortunate enough to have one or two or three, but usually one, that's extremely deep. Then they'll harbor that other person's emotional feelings and try to help solve and resolve those problems in their own thoughts and their own emotional processing, the Scorpio's own emotional processing. And they can even become, when I said distaste, the Scorpio himself or herself can even know, like, there's an internal conflict and contradiction in the control aspect, because the Scorpio understands power and control and time management and responsibility and other things pretty naturally. So they can almost admonish themselves or understand, how do I say this? Let me find the language real quick, because this is something that you may not have heard before. I want to actually get it out properly. They almost beat themselves up for caring so much about other people's situations, because they understand, they have a deep survival instinct and understanding that it's the other person's responsibility to figure out the problem. But if they're devoted to that person, then they'll also naturally invest some of their own energies in the situation, or a lot of their own energies. And so the contradiction is basically in the power struggle of loving the other person, or of devoting one's thought to the other person's problems, because they understand how important that energy is. I don't know, it's hard to explain. I guess in a higher manifestation or level of Scorpio, that problem would be resolved, because you would fully give the power and control in to caring about the other person's problem and not pull back from it. So I don't know if that made any sense at all, but that might have helped my own development. They have an excellent memory. All the water signs do. Scorpios may be the best, but Cancer is up there as well. Pisces a little bit less, but still extremely good memory. And the Scorpio remembers every time that he or she was slighted or transgressed against or demeaned or ridiculed, or if someone went behind their back and they figured out about it. Mostly the negative experiences, because that's where they learn and transform the most. But they'll also remember if you do nice things for them, for sure. And some of that same energy can come in if somebody else does something nice for a Scorpio that I was trying to explain last time. Maybe this will be a clearer way to say it. But Scorpio understands that if someone does something nice for them, that they're indebted to the other person. So that same antagonistic energy, like, oh, really? Do I have to repay this person back now? This motherfucker's just trying to gain my appeasement. You know what I mean? He's giving me this gift because he knows that then I'll be indebted to him. So the Scorpio understands all those dynamics, those personal dynamics, extremely well, and can become freighted with thoughts and emotions about those situations, and can become paranoid that another person is doing that thing to use them, because they're extremely acute about, why is this person doing this? Why is this person doing this, etc. What does it mean? What does this gesture mean? You know, there will always be thoughts about what does the gesture mean. So, about any gesture. So that can become too much, or it can be very good, as we'll see. They're capable of self-sacrifice for someone that they devote themselves to. I think I may have skipped a point that was important back here. Right, so they can transform in friendships. That basically means they become paranoid, or they figure out something sometime that someone really did go behind their back or lied to them, etc. So that looks like a transformation on the outside, but to the Scorpio, that's just. You fucked with me when I wasn't fucking with you. That's it. We're done. But what I was going to say about that is the counterbalance is they can also be ride or die as a friend or a partner. Extremely devoted. So it's the yin and yang. There's a lot of black and white with the Scorpio. Everything's black and white. They want to find the root of everything. And the true issue. So you have to watch your step. Other people have to watch their step. But you have to watch your step as well for accusing people that weren't actually in the wrong. They can recover from horrific events and regain fresh homeostasis, like a new homeostasis. It may not be as good as the old homeostasis, but they'll get back to some even keel much faster than other ascendant signs. So if a Scorpio is at a house party with a bunch of friends, and it's one of their friends' house party, and all the friends, say, become extremely inebriated, including the Scorpio, the next day, the Scorpio is going to be able to, depending on the friend group, I don't know, this may be speaking out of turn for Scorpios, but the Scorpio is going to recover faster because their survival instincts and their ability to transform is much, much better. So while one of the other signs may not be able to wake up for 12 hours and have an extreme headache and just want to eat food and complain and, you know, have some soup and drink some water, etc. The Scorpio is gonna, this is kind of a weird example, but the Scorpio is gonna be able to brush that experience off quicker, even if it's just mentally and emotionally, because of their transformative nature. This is probably a good time to mention the three, and sometimes it's construed as four, archetypes of the Scorpio. The first one's the Scorpion. That's the lowest level, and he's characterized by a thick carapace, much like the Cancer crab, meaning he doesn't let his emotions get shown, and he tries to protect everything that's sincere to him within the shell. and the stinger, obviously, which is defensive aggression. If you fuck with the scorpion, if it's in your shoe and you put your foot in the shoe, it's gonna sting you. You know what I'm saying? Then the second manifestation is the snake. The snake also has defensive aggressive capabilities, but it's more in tune, I guess you could say, with nature and with the ground. As it slithers along, it feels everything. It's not sharp claws and a thick skin, and it can also shed its skin. So the snake brings in transformation more so than the scorpion. The third is known as the eagle, or the bird of prey, and that's where the posture and the face, where the nose looks like a beak and the eyebrows are curved like the eyes of an eagle, come in for sure in the appearance. But that bird is not characterized by defensive aggression like the scorpion and the snake. The eagle picks its prey exactly with oversight, flying ahead of everything, and chooses which one it's going to strike. So that Scorpio is like the politician or something. He's no longer acting defensively, he's in control of the situation. And he has great insight and intuition about what everybody's thinking and what everybody's position is, whether geographically in the case of the eagle, or in intention and motives in the human case. What's everybody's position? And then you can either tie that in, because most people say there's only 3 archetypes of each. You could do like eagle / phoenix, or you could say it's a complete 4th archetype, which is the phoenix. So we'll just, for the sake of this video, you can debate this, I may be wrong, but we'll say it's a 4th and separate archetype, the phoenix. And the phoenix doesn't really have need for enemies at all. In fact, the phoenix's enemy is its former self. And the inhibitions and resistance that that former self gives to transformation, puts up against transformation. Yeah, and the phoenix transforms. So, they enjoy hidden information in situations. That kind of goes without needing much explanation. They enjoy power and control of situation, groups, etc. So that's not always manifest, because they're more private and secretive in nature than to just take outright control of the group. But naturally and over time in action, depending on the other people that are in the group or in the situation, the Scorpio will assert control, even if it's incognito and behind the scenes. They'll still be making some of the calls or influencing some of the opinion. It also depends on the Scorpio, but that's a possibility for sure. The power that's inherent in the Scorpio eventually becomes recognized even by the dullest of people, even if it has to be where someone attacks the Scorpio and realizes the survival instinct and the strength in that situation, whether physically or emotionally or verbally. So at some point the strength will be felt by everybody. It only takes time. They enjoy time alone and to deal with problems privately instead of at another's convenience, and especially not in public. So if you have a beef or a problem with a Scorpio and you start to handle it publicly, that's gonna either lead to retreat into the shell and humiliation and that brooding and dark negative feelings later of the Scorpio, or you're gonna get attacked physically or verbally or emotionally. So you don't want to put a Scorpio on blast in front of a classroom or in front of a party or any kind of situation like that, because shit will get out of hand for you then or later. They can start going behind your back with talking about you to different people, or that's even less common. They'll find some way to spite you where you know it was them and they don't need other people to do it. This doesn't always happen, but it's going to create a lot of animosity in the Scorpio unless they've reached the higher evolved states, because of the exposure and the uncaring way in which you're approaching them. They'd much rather talk this out one-on-one and get to the bottom of the problem. Then they'll talk about almost anything, as long as you're not enemies or something, and try to figure out what's going on. So you don't want to put them on blast or make a scene, as they say. they can become stubborn and spiteful if encroached upon to prove a point. So this goes with even family members, anybody. If they feel like, if the Scorpio feels like they've been encroached upon, they can do little stubborn, tic-tacky bullshit and spiteful things to prove their point, which in a way it's just, depends on how the Scorpio carries it out. So for example, if you go if you live with a Scorpio and you go in the Scorpio's room, and on your way out you leave something unturned, or you leave something unsettled from where it was when you entered, like you leave the door a little bit open when it was closed, or one sock is out of place basically, then, and the Scorpio figures that out, which is pretty likely depending on what their situation is, how caught up in life and stuff they are, then you may not hear about it right away, like, hey fucker, did you go in my room? That's what the Scorpio's feeling on the inside. You know what I'm saying? Did you go in my room, motherfucker? Answer me, bitch. But what they're gonna do instead is poke at you and spite you and do incognito shit if they let their lower natures get the worst of them. See, it's almost better to be direct and upfront like the Aries and just walk up, which my sister has some Aries energy, so I've seen this. Just walk up and say, hey, did you go in my room? Why'd you do that? You know, without the motherfuckers. But sometimes the Scorpio, especially in the lower states, uses the spiteful and the more hidden aggression, passive aggression, I guess you could call it, more naturally. It comes more naturally, being the feminine placement of Mars. So, let's see another one. They're a great observer of character, or a judger of character from afar, but they're exceptional if they invest time in finding out things about a person, or if they come closer to them. That one's straightforward. I'll touch on why later. So above all, the Scorpio yearns for deep understanding and emotional connection with one person that deeply understands them. If it's more, that's better, but they want one other person that gives them understanding and emotional connection through the dark times, through the good times. They want to be, it's what everybody wants deeply, but the Scorpio needs it. They want to be approved of and understood, and not even necessarily helped, just, I understand. You have an intense life, or this situation was really bad, or you did this crazy action, etc. I understand. And for it to be true, because they'll know if it's not true. And then I talked about some Gemini superpowers, which were mind reading and telling the future. Most people had never heard about that for Geminis. And the Scorpio superpowers are a little bit more well known. That's intuition, especially of suspicious situations and people, and of people's intentions. That comes from the survival instinct, and from the troubled past, and from the constant transformation, and from the being able to, that's why they can judge character even from afar in a lot of cases, is because they've seen so many examples and even researched. A lot of Scorpios research crime and stuff. I don't like to talk as much about the mundane things, like which occupations a Scorpio will do. This is more about the character and the nature of the Scorpio. And resiliency and courage would be the other superpower. That's not technically a superpower, obviously, but that's something where they have an extreme amount of strength. So Santos Bonacci tells a story, I'm not sure if it's true, that Alexander the Great used Scorpios in the front line of his army because they're not afraid to die. Because the Scorpio dies many times in his life, or her life, in one capacity or another. So that's the end of my notes. And I'm going to share one personal experience. I may share two, depending on how it goes. As you can tell, this is out of character for a Scorpio. We'll see how it goes. But this one's not too personal. It's just a common situation, and it goes to the point that I talked about at the beginning, about how people see you in a black and white manner. Either they like you or dislike you on first sight. So when I was a freshman in college, I was at a fraternity party at the beginning of the year, of my freshman year, during a rush period. And I didn't end up going into a fraternity or anything. I was just trying out the waters. So I was with some friends, and I knew some people who were going to rush the fraternity. And this one just sticks out because it's one of the most clear examples of someone judging you immediately. So, and there's some territoriality involved in a fraternity house, obviously, so that may have tinted the situation even more. But as I was walking through the front room of the house, I'd been there for a while. I'd probably gotten a couple drinks, gone around the house a few times, etc. Scorpios like to stick to the perimeter and feel things out. So I'd made my rounds, talked to people, etc. that I knew. And as I walked through the front room, I looked to my right, and there's another guy walking through, and it's almost always a guy with a girl. So I think he had his girlfriend with him, but it might have just been him at that point. And it was immediate. This has happened many, many, many times in my life, but there was an immediate antagonistic glare from both of us. The Scorpio will almost always, depends on the Scorpio, I gave the glare back immediately. I think I might have even had it on already with my mean mug or my resting bitch face, whatever. So sometimes when I'm walking around, I'll just be like this at all times. Not with the mouth hanging open, but with the eyebrows furrowed. So we're both, he could have been a Scorpio Ascendant as well, or something else, but we were both looking at each other like this. Intense glare. He was already in the fraternity, probably a junior or a sophomore, but the story gets interesting besides just this glare. So that was it. He continued walking on, but the daggers had been shot by both of us. We both knew what was going on. And probably 10 minutes later in the party, I'm over by the bar, by the DJ section, kind of just minding my own business, talking to a couple friends, talking to one of my friends who's rushing behind the bar. He's serving us as part of his pledge duties. He has to be the bartender. And so I guess this was after rush. And next thing you know, this girl, and like I said, I'm obviously judging what her intentions are as she comes up with my Scorpio Ascendant. This girl dances over to me, somewhat attractive, but I can tell it's not me that she's interested, although she's grinding on me essentially, that she's proving a point to somebody. And I look over to my right, and none other than the motherfucker who was staring daggers at me now has his girlfriend on her own accord trying to play Agent of Chaos, dancing on me. Trying to basically start a fight in this fraternity party. I'm with a couple friends, we're freshmen. There's a whole house of seniors, juniors, sophomores who are already in this fraternity. So if this guy wants to call in his boys or whatever, I'm gonna have to make a motherfucking run for it. So that situation got diffused. He was kind of a bitch about it. He came and grabbed her, didn't even confront me, say anything to me, because I was just, as soon as I realized what the situation was, I wasn't participating back. I was letting her doing her little thing and kind of just standing there still like a statue. With my furrowed brow. With one eyebrow raised. Like, what the fuck's this girl doing? I know what she's playing. So it's a good thing probably that I didn't get into that. But that's just one situation that's like, it's almost as if, because, you know, women with their intuition as well, it's almost as if, I doubt that he had talked about me. There's no way he had talked about me to her. It was just daggers of sight. But it wasn't enough. Guys don't talk about looking at one another. They don't talk about, this guy looked at me weird, because nobody understands that, especially not another guy. They don't get rivalry just based on eye contact. He may not have even understood that, but the girl picked up on the antagonism between us, possibly, and intuitively knew that I was the guy to get under her boyfriend's skin with. Or she found me attractive. So, one other example, this is more general and common, is that, and this has to do with the antagonism. How do I put this? Scorpios understand control and they understand boundaries because they have intense boundaries and because they like to be in control. So sometimes I feel like a predator in other people's houses, even when I have good intentions and they have good intentions. Just by the nature of me being there, seems like something bad may happen to myself. They may not even be feeling this energy, but I feel almost as if I'm encroaching upon them just by the intensity of the presence and of the emotions. As if it's basically like this: if they were as intuitive or as psychic as a Scorpio, which some are for sure, and then it's even better because then you can just connect with them. But to people that don't understand deep emotions and feelings, it's almost as if they don't notice the power of the situation, of the feelings, because like a Scorpio can feel the intensity of other people very well, and they know that they have intensity being projected outwards as well. But when somebody else doesn't recognize that power, it almost seems dangerous for the whole situation. But that could just be speaking to my own pathologies. So, anyways, that's the Scorpio Ascendant video. I hope there's something in there. It's pretty long, but Scorpios can do deep research. So if you have a Scorpio Ascendant, maybe you enjoyed this. See you guys.